Hello and welcome to the Brothers Random Show. My name is Travis.
I'm Michael.
We are two ordinary brothers discussing extraordinary ideas and some random shit. Some of the topics that we will be going over range from theology, politics, masculinity, movies, books, pop culture, and many other subjects. We will be talking about people we admire and the things that we learn from the wisdom that they project. We will be basically riding on the coattails of giants, people such as Ben Shapiro, Thomas Sowell, Matt Walsh, Megyn Kelly, Chris Williamson of Modern Wisdom, Joe Rogan, Candace Owens, Adam Carolla, Larry Elder, Gary Vaynerchuk, Barry Weiss, Mike Rowe, and basically everybody over at the Daily Wire, and especially Jordan B. Peterson, Dr. Jordan B. Peterson, who we think is the sage of our time. Welcome to the show, everyone. Michael, why are we here?
Today we are going to be discussing Exodus. The Jordan Peterson put together a crew of people, a round table, if you will, that and they are sitting down discussing Exodus. And this is in preparation for Jordan. He's going to be going, I don't know if it's necessarily he's going to be doing a tour or not, but basically he's going to be doing a series of lectures on Exodus, and this is in preparation for those lectures. And this is behind the Daily Wire paywall, which we highly recommend. Go
out and get
a
that
Daily Wire subscription. If you with the things that we talk about, and this is a review. We're talking about the episodes that they are doing on the Daily Wire about Exodus. So we're just kind of bringing our perspective. We'll talk about some of the comments and some of the things that they talk about, and deep dive it a little bit more of kind of our thoughts behind it and things like that. So let's go.
Yeah, I'd like to add, also, we both grew up on a Mormon polygamist or fundamentalist Mormon group. This is not something that defines us, but we do have a different perspective on a lot of what comes up, and we will be discussing the Book of Mormon. Many Mormons believe that is another testament of the Jesus Christ narrative. We ourselves have more or less left Mormonism, but we still have an affinity for it. We still appreciate the people who do it. Many of them are family members, and so when we come to this with a perspective of that religion, which does believe in the Bible. But their main book is the Book of Mormon. So we might pull some of the things that we learned as children into it, even though they may not have as much value
as broad an understanding, I guess.
Yes.
A lot of people,
don't know.
Mormons are they're shrouded in mystery, and so a lot of people don't really know a lot about that. But I mean, I'm excited to just get right into this first Exodus episode.
So I should name off the people that's in that what do you call
round table.
Let me just see real quick. I just saved it. All right, so the people on the round table that Jordan Peterson is doing, he's calling it the Exodus Seminars, and they're basically a series, and it's just a bunch of guys talking about Exodus, the book in the Bible, which I like to emphasize that he does not consider the Bible really a book. It's more of a library of books, and I would suggest to anybody listening, before you do this, if this is at all intriguing to you, you should listen to his lectures
on the Bible.
Yes. But it's all Genesis. He just goes through the
Yeah.
books of Genesis. There's like 16 episodes, I believe, and they're all on YouTube. They're easily accessible. They're fascinating. I mean, you and I talk about what he has to say about Cain,
Enable. Yeah.
Cain and Abel story. So these are all stories that we are all familiar with. If you grew up in a religious home, excuse me, if you grew up in a religious home, this is all stuff that you should be very familiar with. And for me, I've been watching movies about Exodus all my life. So there's the Ten
Ten
Commandments,
Commandments.
Prince of Egypt
Charlton
with,
Heston.
yeah,
Charlton Heston.
stars Charlton Heston. That was from the 1950s.
My
There's
favorite though is Prince of Egypt.
Prince of Egypt. Well,
Love
the
Prince of
music in
Egypt.
that is done by Hans Zimmer. That's
No,
why.
really?
That's why.
Is it
Yeah.
really? I did
That's why
not
it's
know
so
that.
good. Hans
That is
Zimmer is
why
my favorite. Is my favorite
it is
composer. Movie
so
composer.
good. So good.
It's really really good. And I always think of that when I'm listening to this lecture or to this seminar. So and then Ridley Scott even took his hand at it in Exodus, Gods and Kings, with Christian Bale, which it was a flop. Came out, oh shoot, it came out like 5-7 years ago.
Did you like it?
I liked it. I
Did you?
thought we needed a director's cut of it though, because
Oh,
Ridley Scott's famous for having
for having
director's
some
cuts.
amazing director's
Director's
cuts. Kingdom
cuts
of Heaven, director cut all
is
the
a
way.
phenomenal film. The Kingdom
Yes.
of Heaven, the theatrical release, is a shit film, in my opinion. So they're two
Weird.
they're
Weird
two
how that is.
they're two separate films, because he put like 40 more minutes into Kingdom of Heaven's director's cut, which
And it's
40
so crazy that little things could change it
oh,
so
a ton
much.
of stuff.
Yeah.
So we'll
Yeah.
have to do a deep dive into that. That would be fun. That would be
Yeah.
so
Totally.
for Exodus, the men around the round table is of course Dr. Peterson, and then there's Dennis Prager, there's Larry Aaron, Dr. James Orr, Dr. Oz Guinness, Dr. Stephen Blackwood. Greg Horwitz comes in 2 episodes later or something like that. He comes in later. And Dr. Douglas Headley and Jonathan Pajot. Now, these are all titans of the Bible. These guys know these guys have studied the Bible, excuse me, all of their lives. You and I, you've read it all the way through. I have not, and I'm attempting to, but it's going to be a long slog.
It's a trudge. Yep.
But I am at best a layman when it comes to the Bible. I knew the stories growing up mostly because of the movies. So mom always was finding movies. These were all movies mostly produced in the 1950s, but lately some newer versions have been done, like The Prince of Egypt, which, by the way, we both said we love that movie because the music is phenomenal in that movie. The reason it's phenomenal is because, because of Hans Zimmer's score. So.
Well, and it's weird, but it's funny because I've been out of religion so long, but I've had kind of a rekindling and appreciation with finding Jordan Peterson.
Yes.
And during that time though, I probably, and this is, I don't want to toot my own horn or anything, but I've probably forgotten more about religion than most people have ever learned in their entire life. So
that's, and I'm kind of
that's part of how I was raised. I was very religious in my young years, and for a long time I was very religious, and I said I was a kind of a
one of our last
zealot.
episodes. Yeah,
Yeah.
zealot.
I was a little bit of a zealot or a pious prick, but
Yeah.
but
And
yeah. Anyway,
we know a lot of
so
people like that who are still kind of in that mode.
yeah,
But I think our journey, for me, my journey has been trying to find the balance. I mean,
mhm.
there's super religious people who think that this is the just complete word of God, and
Every
they're
word.
and they're
Yeah.
pious, and they got a ton of hubris, and they just are. Those people usually are off-putting to people like you and me. And then there's people like um that are against religion altogether, right?
Yeah.
Those are the atheists. They don't believe in religion. So for me, I'm like right down the middle in most of this. And I think that's where Jordan Peterson is because he's always kind of finding this psychological significance of everything that's going on in the Bible. And for me, it's actually enriched the Bible for me because now I'm not only looking at it as the possibility that maybe it actually happened, but more as this is a guide to live by. And that's where its value for me is more important. And
Mhm.
that's why those Genesis lectures that he gave are really good. So this is essentially a
Yeah.
sequel or a 2.0, or I should say 1.5
Five. Yeah.
of
Halfway.
the Genesis of the Bible. And I think
Yeah.
he's going to do this every couple of years to tackle this. So
I would suspect.
what's
So
your
let's get into it.
first topic of it? What's
Uh,
the first topic
so
for you?
so first note that I took was Dennis Prager talking about how in the Exodus story, it kind of starts off with the fact that Pharaoh forgot the new Pharaoh had forgotten how much the Hebrews helped them. So this is going back to Genesis where Joseph came into Egypt,
Mm-hmm.
and that's a great story. Like
The Joseph
the
story,
fact
yeah.
the fact that Joseph came in as a slave and he had the hand of Midas. He was proactive and productive in everything that he
Everything that
did.
everything he touched turned to gold, right? So
He was
yeah,
yeah, he comes in as a slave. He goes, he helps fix Potiphar, he buys him as a slave, and he helps fix Potiphar's household. So he helps Potiphar and makes his household run smoothly. He becomes the head of the household, and then he has Potiphar's wife. There's a scandal that goes along there
mm-hmm.
where Potiphar's wife wants him sexually, and he's like, no, we
I
can't
can't
do
do that
this. And
to
then
this man I respect because he likes
also that's
Potiphar.
well, it's also it's an ethic of I believe in a higher power that I have to adhere to. So, and there's a law against there's something wrong about this, and I'm not going to
Well,
uh
let's not
partake.
let's not get too much in the weeds on him.
Anyway, so but he rises up and he gets to a point where he saves the Egyptian people from famine, right? And
like
they thank
the
him.
entire Egyptian everything, like he
Yep,
saves everyone.
yep. And they bring in the Hebrews, the Jews come in and live in Egypt in peace, right? He was the second in command from underneath Pharaoh.
For
Joseph was.
probably a while. Like we don't
Yeah,
know how long, but
we don't really
probably a long
know.
time.
We don't really know, but eventually a Pharaoh comes to power that remembers not, and Dennis Prager, he kind of stresses this because it's like basically remember your debts. It's it's a call to the
It's
fact that Pharaoh did
forgetting
not
your
remember.
past.
Yeah.
It's
Yep.
forgetting your past. So the new Pharaoh comes along and enslaves the Hebrews. that
Yep.
that at one point Joseph saved them. So what happened? So you could probably say, let's say this is 100 years between this Pharaoh and the one that that
Enslaves them.
enslaves them. So and we don't know there. Everybody says it's Ramesses the first that enslaves them, but I don't know if we know the history of that, because they don't mention the history in this seminar. Yep. But basically it's a fascinating thing where you're going, okay, hold on a second. You got saved by this Hebrew who you have now completely forgotten. Completely. Mm-hmm. And so there's no, it's almost, Dennis Prager puts this forth. He says, and they were a nation that did not know Adams or Madison, the people who started. And that's where we are now. Our whole nation is like this.
We're in a place now with our nation where we have forgotten the sacrifices that were made by our founders to build this, to start this great nation. And, right. And I kind of deep dived a little bit into this, thinking about how our founders sacrificed so much in order to be signers of the Declaration of Independence. Right. Yeah. And this isn't well known, but like John Hancock, there was a moment.
He was a merchant, wasn't he?
Yeah. I don't know. He owned all of basically his whole fortune was in Boston.
Yeah.
Land and what have you, whatever his I believe it was properties. He had properties and stuff, probably ships as well.
I think he had ships. I think he was a merchant. That's why.
And it's kind of legend or Mishnah, really. It's where he says, "Burn, Boston, burn, though it make me a pauper."
Yeah.
And he didn't actually say that. Basically, Washington was trying to repel the British from Boston, and he asked the Continental Congress at the time, the leadership at the time, should I go do this thing? And John Hancock, a lot of people kind of were like, well, John Hancock owns a lot of property there. And like, what do you think? And he basically says, he's like,
just do it.
If you must.
Yeah.
Huh. Though it's to my detriment, if you must.
He also signed
burn it down.
He also signed the Declaration of Independence so large that he said, well, he famously quoted saying, so the King George doesn't have to use his spectacles to read
it. Yeah. So
and it did end up making him a pauper, didn't it? Like his life was like there was assassination attempts on him and stuff like that.
Oh my gosh.
I don't know.
There were I looked it up. I wonder if I could find it. But basically many of the signers lost their fortunes. Many of them, like 7 of them lost their lives. 16, 17 of them were tortured.
Holy crap. So they were really putting themselves on the line.
Yeah. So it's two, so nope, that's not it. This one. So,
and we as a nation have forgotten these men, right? We have become self-absorbed, and nobody believes in the Bible or the flag anymore. The flag is this like it's become a pejorative essentially with our nation. We used to have a lot of pride in it. Did you find it?
Yeah. So 5 of the 56 were captured by the British and tortured. 12 lost their homes through looting, confiscation, or burning. 17 lost their fortunes. 2 lost their sons to the military, and 9 lost their lives.
So it wasn't an act that didn't have cost.
Yeah. So
So
just
to bring it back to this Exodus story, so Dennis Prater brings this up. He says we are a nation who's forgotten Madison, and Madison helped construct the Constitution. Him and Hamilton, and
and then
Hamilton is best known now as a musical. He's not known for being this great leader in the building of this country. And Madison is like an afterthought in that show. I don't know if you ever watched the show, but
I haven't.
but and there's all these secondary characters who are people from our building of this country. And you could argue that that's shining a light on, because it was a huge hit. It was a huge hit for 10 years. It was like the biggest thing on Broadway, but they never really get into the greatness that these men started this great country. They did. And because people are so against the American flag now, and it's become this sad pejorative in our society. I would argue that that's where we are now in our own society.
To hate on the founders because they owned slaves.
Yeah, that's right. A popular thing.
Which kind of gets us to the second thing Jordan Peterson brought up, and that is that right out the gate, there's kind of an ethos that is against slavery in the Exodus
story.
Right? There's an invisible ethic in the story that slavery is bad.
Well, right? And now, so let's talk about this. So all of the prophets up to this point, almost all of them own slaves. They don't talk about all of them owning slaves, but so Jacob,
Abraham, Isaac,
and Jacob all had slaves. In fact, Abraham, the concubine, was considered at the time a slave that had become your wife. Yeah. So were they benevolent slave owners? I don't know.
Well, the point is that, and then Jordan Peterson makes this point, is that their societies, basically before, when did the people start kind of thinking that slavery was a bad thing? It started probably with the Enlightenment, that kind of started with with believing that slavery was bad. But we got to realize that until recent human history, slavery was the economy of the time.
And that's not justification
for everybody. We are not justifying this. No, at all. So I'm just saying that there was a time when slavery, that most of human history, slavery was not the exception, it was the norm.
Yeah, it was the rule, not the exception.
It was the rule.
So in this book, and this is something Jordan Peterson says also in this seminar, is essentially, without the Bible, there is no abolition of slavery in the United States.
The abolition. So, and this,
because this is, and without the story,
abolitionists were Christian.
Heavily
majority of them were very Christian,
and they used this specific book because of that. So the slaves in America would read this, like, if you could read as a slave, this is what you read. You read this book. You read Exodus. Because that meant that at some point you believed that you would get out of it, that you would be liberated from slavery because you were a human being. You were reading this and you saw Moses as the savior of mankind.
They called Harriet Tubman Moses. That
Oh,
was her nickname.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, yeah. Harriet Tubman's, and for those who don't know, Harriet Tubman was
Started the
a
Underground
woman born
Railroad
in slavery. I don't know that she started it. She was a huge participant in
in the
the
yeah, okay.
Underground Railroad, going back into the South, getting slaves
And
and
bringing
bringing
them
them
to
up
the
to the
north.
North,
Yeah.
right? And freeing slaves. So, and there, it's a great show. Is it? I think it's called Harriet, right? I
Oh,
actually
movie.
enjoyed it. I
Yeah,
thought
the
it
movie.
was a movie.
Yeah,
Yeah, I actually enjoyed it.
Cynthia Erivo I plays Harriet Tubman, and I've never seen the movie, but I like Cynthia Erivo. I think I'm saying her name right. Cynthia Erivo. Arriva,
Yeah.
maybe. And I like her a lot. She was in The Outsider on HBO. Did you ever watch that?
Mm-mm.
It was
No. So
anyway,
anyway, her name,
so
her nickname was Moses. So there's people don't realize when they throw out the Bible, they're just like, it's a bunch of garbage and hogwash and
yeah,
stuff
but
like
this
that.
actually helped the slaves get out of slavery. So it's also, this is interesting to me. I just had this thought. It's the same book or library of books, which is what the Bible is, justified slave owners and also justified abolitionists, depending on how you read it.
Depending on where
Because this is in Uncle Tom's Cabin. So I
yeah,
recently just read Uncle Tom's Cabin, and in that book, the slave traders use the Bible also to justify their actions,
right,
right?
right. So it
So
became this. It, I mean, it became a kind of a controversy but I mean,
this
the
book of the Bible,
that
there is no abolition of slavery without the Exodus book of the Bible,
I
because
I don't believe
of
so. Yes,
of
I don't
be,
believe so.
because of of the story of Moses getting his people out of bondage.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
we can trace that back. So what's another thing that they
So
talk about?
from there, they kind of Dennis Prager mentions the two tyrannies, which I love. Apparently, yeah, in throughout the Torah, and I guess it's kind of a Jewish tradition as well as a kind of a Jewish teaching, is that there are two tyrannies. There's the external tyranny of Pharaoh, right, or of just other
Yeah.
external tyrannies in throughout humankind.
Well, they get into
And
the story of Pharaoh commanding the midwives, which are women who, for people who don't know, a midwife is basically a woman who helps another woman have a baby. They were
yeah,
considered doctors before doctors were a thing, and
yeah,
so Pharaoh commands the women to kill the Hebrew males. This is very interesting, and they get into this. We are in a society now, and we talked about this last episode with where masculinity is basically
kind of under attack.
under attack,
Yeah,
and people are trying with abortion and men who want to become women. They're trying to get rid of males. This is happening again. It's not
yeah.
it's not coming from the top down. It's society just doing it on their own.
So Dennis Prager, he puts out, hey, this is probably Egyptians that are the midwives, and Pharaoh's asking the Egyptian midwives to go out there and kill all the men. Right. And Jonathan Paggio, which I wanted to mention, I thought it was interesting that he is immediately to the right of Jordan Peterson. I don't know if
That was
Jordan Peterson,
intentional.
I don't know if that was
The
intentional or
right
something like
hand
that.
of
The
Jordan
right hand
Peterson.
of the king, the right hand of the king. Right. I don't know. I don't know. But but I know Jordan Peterson loves Jonathan Pageau, so there could be something to that. But basically, Jonathan Pageau, he says, well, there's probably a reason that it could be that they were the Hebrew midwives, because when you have a tyrant, you have to get the women to emasculate the men.
Not just tell them that they got to take out the garbage. That's not what you're talking about. We're talking about like making them not confrontational, because any kind of revolution that ever happens in society, it's usually led by strong men.
And that's what Jordan, he chimes in, and he's just like, he's like, the biggest threat to a tyranny is going to be the strong men, right? So you have this kind of circle going on where Pharaoh, I got to keep my power, right? This tyrant has to keep his power, so he goes to the women and says, you have to
kill all the baby
men. So emasculate the society. Go out there and emasculate the society. And I thought this was really interesting, because I just listened to Chris Williamson's wrap up of 2022, just his takeaways and stuff like that. And in his interview with Rob Boymister, he comes to this conclusion that, and Roy Boymister, Roy actually says this in his, he's kind of an old guy, and he's just like, he basically says, women will set the price for sex, and men will meet it and not much more. Okay, so women basically hold the bar for where men need to be in order to have sexual access to them. Okay, women are the deciders of who gets to have access to sex with them, right? It's just an interesting thought that if women lower the bar so low that effeminate men can have sex with them, then you emasculate men. You kill the men,
and that's
the
why
masculinity. You will kill the masculinity in a society by bringing that bar of sex down to where you do not have to be masculine to have sex with men.
Yeah. So this could pertain to why sperm count is down in most men. They just reported on this Daily Wire's Newswire, or Daily Wire's News Daily Morning. They reported on this. The sperm count in men nowadays is
all-time low.
It's like all-time low. It's like 20% low. That explains that, because so basically high testosterone begets high testosterone. So when you lower the bar for the testosterone, it doesn't go up, it just keeps going down, which is also one of the reasons why the population is that, this could be like a mental, what's the word, like the society's mental shift to stop the overgrowth of the planet. Right?
Interesting. Well, and wasn't that Pharaoh's argument, is that they're getting too many. The Hebrew are becoming too many and
they're
powerful.
too strong, and they're too strong.
So strong.
If we get rid of some of them, and this could almost be like a natural selection for the end of, or to avoid the overpopulation of the world. Now, I think with technology, we could probably stave off the end of the world.
Yeah.
But this could be a natural way of doing that.
Elon Musk talks about uh, a population deficit
Yes,
that
that will happen
we're looking into
in like a
probably
generation.
having a decline where we're
Yeah.
not able to replace
But this is all
the
part of that.
the
So it's a
population. Yeah.
low sperm count.
Hmm.
The bar to have sexual relationships with men has been so lowered that that and this also explains like and also there's the killing of people are now using like abortion as birth control, and I mean that's not it shouldn't be the purpose of abortion, but that's a third rail we can get into
Yeah.
another time. So I wanted to go that is very interesting because what it's saying is that in order to control a population, you get rid of the strong male, and
Yeah.
that's what our society's. I wanted to go
Yeah.
back to when they didn't know Joseph.
Hmm.
The
Yeah.
same I wrote down the same idea apply. Okay, so one pharaoh knew Joseph and he was a good pharaoh and he got everything going. And then there's this new pharaoh who comes along, doesn't know Joseph, and he's a tyrant and he puts the Israelites into slavery, right? This is the same thing we talked a while ago about how the polygamous groups are one bad prophet away from being a cult,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
when you watch the show Eat Pray, no, Keep
Keep sweet,
Sweet
pray and
Pray and
obey.
Obey, that's on Netflix and anybody wants to check it out. There's Warren, it's about the Warren Jeffs polygamy group, and they were an okay group. They were still polygamists, but they still watched television and they still had, still wore
The
modern.
the women could wear
The
pants,
women could wear
right?
pants and they weren't
Like
kind of subjugated. But then he dies and Warren, his son, takes over, and then that's all thrown out. They're cut off from society. They stop the women can only wear dresses and have their hair a certain way, and that's where the cult like mentality
the
kind of just
the
sweeps in. So it's the same kind of concept with the pharaoh, because the pharaohs who knew Joseph and paid and gave him props for saving them were good pharaohs, right? They were still kings and maybe they still had slaves. I don't know. I didn't live back then, but the
they obviously
idea,
did because Joseph was a slave. He was
yes,
sold
Joseph, he
into
was sold
slavery.
as a
So
slave. Yeah. So,
obviously it was still, yeah.
but maybe they were benevolent, and people have a hard time with having a benevolent slave owner because we are against slavery, but
Hmm.
there were, even in that evil of slavery, there were still gradations. I mean, you could be
I'm sure.
like a tyrannical beat and rape my slaves every day, or
Yeah. Yeah.
you can be, I'm going to feed them and take care of them, and they're,
Yeah.
and this is also the argument that Moses makes later in his early in his life. Oh wait, is this, no, that's part of the movie. I was about to say something that I think it's part of the movie, because in the movie, in the Charlton Heston 10 Commandments, he convinces Pharaoh to give them one day off or something
Oh,
along those lines,
when he's still
when he's
prince
still
of Egypt.
prince
Yeah.
of Egypt.
Yeah.
But I think that was a movie trope. I don't think there's no
That
evidence that
was a thing.
Moses
Yeah.
did that. But
There's a there,
anyway,
but
so I thought that was interesting because basically I mean, one of the I don't know if we want to get into it, but you've told me that one of the reasons that you actually left the polygamy group is because you didn't like the new guy who had come in, or there was a scandal around the new guy who had come in, and
right.
you got this isn't the reason, but it's one of the reasons, correct?
One of the reasons was
Yes. You don't
the
you don't have to
there
explain it, but what I'm trying to get at is the the polygamy groups, when they have a good ruler, don't tend to have the cultish mentality. But then you get a
But then,
bad ruler in, and they become very cult. So we didn't
yeah,
grow. I would never explain to somebody that I grew up in a cult, but we did grow up in a polygamist group. But
yeah,
I wouldn't ever see it as a cult because we were still allowed to have friends that weren't in our group. We were still
yeah,
allowed to associate. The women didn't all have to wear dresses. There wasn't this, I don't know. When they start taking away individual rights, that's when it seems to go into cult like behavior, right?
yeah. The more the tyranny, the more the cult,
The more the
right?
cult. Yeah.
The 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 more it will lapse into being a cult, for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah, yeah.
But
So
anyway, the midwives reject uh Pharaoh's edict, and
because they feared God more
more
than they
than they
feared the
fear
Pharaoh,
Pharaoh. Yeah.
right? So there's a higher ethic. There's a a and that you could see God as being this higher way of being and this higher ethic, and they feared that more than they feared the Pharaoh, right?
Yeah.
And that this is to their credit that they wouldn't do it. So Pharaoh he did end up doing it a different way, right? Which comes into basically that the Moses's mother builds him a ark, right?
Yes.
Builds him a
Yeah.
boat. It's the same word as the ark from Noah and
Mm-hmm.
the ark, right? The same word. It's and Jonathan Paggio talks about it is the thing that is meant to save humanity, right? So Moses is saved in an ark. Noah saved humanity in an ark, right?
Yeah.
And
Well,
um
and the motif of because Moses, the name means drawn from
the
the
water.
water, and so the
Yeah.
motif of water. Jonathan Pageau brings this up a lot too, because uh, all the prophets meet their significant others near a well,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
there's something about the importance of water in our society, the motif of water,
Yeah.
and Joseph
And
and Moses actually become has a um uh definite connection to water because he turns the water into blood, and because he brings
yeah,
water forth from the rock later in his life, which would also be his
which,
undoing.
which is kind of
um
his undoing.
yeah,
He kind of, and we'd get into it later, but he gets into this uh the power kind of gets to him, I think. The power
yeah,
kind of gets to him, and
but that's much
he
later
does
after
it.
this
That's
story.
much later. The power
Yeah.
kind of gets to him, and one of the guys, I think it was Dr. Oz, that says power corrupts. He mentions a quote from somebody where power corrupts uh, universally,
Yeah.
basically. And
Well, what's the saying is the saying that I kept thinking of when they were
absolute
talking.
power corrupts absolutely. That's
Yeah.
the
Or
trope
no,
I've heard.
well, it's power corrupts, absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Oh, okay.
So
Yeah, right,
power,
right.
so when you get a heavy amount of power, it corrupts you. And then
Yeah,
when you have absolute power, when you are controlling everyone,
yeah.
it corrupts you
Corrupts
absolutely,
absolutely.
which is why the United States, we vote a guy out every 4 years, or vote him back,
48. Yeah,
4 to 8 years.
yeah.
So
So
the whole point of that, so the forefathers knew these stories in and out, like they were they knew
yeah.
these. They had studied them more than anybody studied anything in high school here, even today.
And
And
I would
then
argue that the president, the reason the pendulum swings so much when one president is in and one president is out is because the president has has become more like a king or a pharaoh than
than it
he was
used to
ever
be.
meant to be. He was
Yeah,
never meant to have as much power
as he
as he
has.
does.
But you also,
Slowly over time, we've been giving the president more and more and more power,
well, and
which is
you gotta
not
also
good.
you gotta also remember we've grown as a country exponentially since the
Yeah,
founding of this
exponentially. Yeah,
country. So
yeah.
you gotta think we we only had 13 colonies at the time that we started the country. There was probably uh, I'm
Dude,
just
who?
get
Yeah, I can't.
I'm just guessing
We'd have
maybe
to.
like
We'd have to look it up, but it
may,
wouldn't be very many,
it would
right?
maybe like 30 million people total, like you know, in the whole country. We are a country of 328 million people right now.
Isn't it
We are
365?
I thought
365?
it was
No.
three, last I checked it was
Oh.
328, but
Oh,
you know,
okay.
the borders are open, so that could be changing real fast.
So, so, but yeah. Anyway, so
So one of the other things that they talk about, so uh um
Pajot.
jonathan Jonathan Pajot talks about uh the tyranny and wanting to kill the men, but this also goes back to, I wanted to mention Joe Rogan always mentions what's that saying that he always mentions, uh or how does it go? It goes, hard men create soft times, soft men create soft, or soft times create soft men, and soft men create hard times.
Yeah.
And that goes back to the killing of of the 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 babies, because we're in the stage now where soft men are going to create hard times. We're gonna
Yeah.
we're probably gonna be old men when it actually happens, I would think, because we're already midway through our lives at this point. But I would think in the next 10 years, so we're seeing the soft men version of this. So soft men are creating the hard times.
But that's also the point of doing something like this, right? That's why we're talking. That's
Yeah,
why I mean, ultimately, I guess, in a sense, we want to put our hand in towards helping men be greater, right?
yeah,
Being better.
yeah.
So, um, so yeah, that's why we're kind of doing this. So that's I think why there's a going back. There's people going back to these biblical stories
Mm-hmm.
because there's a hole in our society that, and I think
They kind
um,
of
Ben
blew
Shapiro
up.
kind of talks about this, where there's a hole in our society. There's a religious or a Bible or God filled
Hole. Yeah,
hole in that needs to be filled
other things.
it, by that needs to be filled by God or the Bible or religion or something. There's a hole
Well,
in all of us that's kind of permeating throughout us,
well,
and it needs to be filled.
for
So
20 plus 30 years, we've been a society that's just filling it up with other stuff, probably stuff that
yeah.
doesn't matter, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
one of the other things that I wanted to bring up, and Jordan Peterson talks about this, is that he always talks about, most people think that power, and we just got done talking about power, and power corrupts, absolutely. So our society did not start out predicated on power. It has become a society predicated on power. But
Oh,
he
and
and
James Orr kind of mentions this religious framing. It is religious framing that gives us the power to resist tyranny. Is that what you're kind of talking
yes,
about?
well, no, I
Yeah.
was going to go into Francis DeWall. So he talks,
Oh,
Jordan Peterson talks about Francis DeWall's uh, research in the chimps,
oh,
and
yeah,
how
yeah,
the
yeah,
chimp, how the strongest chimp isn't always necessarily the alpha male. He's
yeah,
usually, it's usually the chimp that's best at reciprocity,
yeah.
at reciprocal. So for example, this is a tough thing for some people to understand. So you have a chimp. He's the alpha male, but he's the alpha male because he goes around to all the alpha females and he grooms them. So that's like him helping them out. He's just
Yeah.
he grooms them. They that's the reciprocity. He's very good to them. He's not slapping them around and
Yeah.
picking fights with them. And he's going to last longer as the alpha male, as the leader of the group than the
tyrant.
So the tyrant,
Yeah.
the tyrannical chimp comes in, slaps around all the alpha females, and the alpha females and some of the beta males will team
We'll
up
actually
and take
go
him out,
and rip him apart.
and
Yeah.
he doesn't last very long as the alpha male, because
Yeah.
there is that hierarchy, but it's not, according to Francis DeWall's work, according to Jordan Peterson's study in Francis DeWall's work. That's what the discovery was. It wasn't a society based on power. It was a society based on reciprocity. And we are in a society now, or societal shift in our own culture, that claims that that's all we are, is a society of power, based completely on power. Like, how much power can I have over you? How much power can I have over my family? That is a negative. That's an overall negative way of the world's working, right?
Yeah.
The way that our society started out, I would say, with the invention of the United States, was they started out as a society of reciprocity. I pay you a little bit of money for you to come build something on the side of my house. That's reciprocity. And I believe that one of our society ills right now is that we've lost that narrative, and everybody's out for power. All they want to do is take somebody down. And this is what we were talking about last week, because rather, at the expense of what? I'm always saying this. At the expense of what? So I can succeed, but I don't want to succeed at the expense of somebody else. Right?
Yeah.
I don't want to take somebody else down in order to succeed. I would like to succeed simultaneously, right?
Yeah.
At the same time. But there's this idea in society that the only way for me to succeed is if you fail.
Right. Yeah.
And that's
zero sum game.
Yeah, the zero sum game.
Yeah.
It's like, and I'm very much more on board of the society of reciprocity rather than the society of power. But they go into that a little bit.
Yeah.
One of the other touches is, up until the point that Moses becomes a man, all of the heroes of this story are women.
Right.
We have the midwives.
Interesting.
Have the midwives are the heroes because they deny Pharaoh's edict. You've got his mother who makes him an ark, a boat to put into the Niles to save him from the soldiers of the Pharaoh. And you have his sister Miriam, who's watches over, who follows the thing down the aisle, the Nile. And then you have Pharaoh's daughter, who finds the ark, knows that this is a Hebrew child, and
saves him anyway.
Goes, no, I'm going to keep this child and I'm going to call him mine.
Yeah.
So we have 4 incidences of women. And this is the thing about the Bible, is the Bible always gets this huge bad rap because it basically names like 3 women in the entire Bible. There's Ruth, but that's not true. Like, everybody, a lot of the time, women are the heroes of the story, right?
Yeah.
They're not picking up swords and slashing off arms. They are the heroes of the story. Miriam's a hero because she watches Moses as he's being floated down the Nile,
Mm.
Moses's mother, like the most intense scene in Prince of Egypt, I have to say this, is when
Oh,
it gives me chills every time I watch it. When the
yes.
mother is singing that song and the wind's sweeping at her face and she's watching the boat go down the Nile. I mean, it gives me
I
chills, it
s-
gives me tears.
I
It's an
sing that
amazing,
song to my kids. I sing
yeah,
that song to my kids.
I love
Yeah,
that song.
that
So
to my kids to put them to bed at night. Yeah,
yeah,
I sing that song. So and it is amazing. You got the hair, like
yeah,
this the
yeah, and
her
she's so
hair's coming over her
beautiful
face and she's
and
beautiful, dude.
and
So this
so the faith that the mom had to have that nothing was gonna, like, she, it might have been like an act of desperation, but she had to have some kind of faith that he was going to make it through.
yeah,
But you could
fate.
still so imagine yourself as the mother. You've decided to do this to save your son's life, right?
Hmm.
Because even though the midwife said no, we're not going to kill, he still sent his soldiers
He's
to go
he
throw him in
sent,
the
yep, to
Nile.
go throw him in the river. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it didn't, even though the midwives saved their own souls by not doing what he was telling them to do, it still didn't save the babies, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's more of a personal act on their part. And then then there's the mom. You as a mother had to have this moment of desperation. The soldiers are coming after my baby. I have to find a way to get him out of here. So the Nile, okay, I'm going to build this boat and
Mm.
put him in there. But then you're still doubtful, right? You're a human being. You're probably praying the whole time and you still
Yeah.
have faith in God, but you're going, uh, the Nile is a huge river. He's going to get sucked up by or eaten by a
Eden.
crocodile or something like that. So you go, okay, my daughter is going to go watch this. And because she's a girl, she's not going to be killed by the soldiers, right? Because
Mm.
she's a girl. So
Yeah.
I'm going to go. And that's why Miriam gets named. Like they don't even name
Yeah. The mother.
the mother. Miriam
Uh,
gets named.
it might have.
And
Wow.
and
Interesting. So
so they're
the
all heroes. But they're heroes in their conviction to what's right.
we
Maybe that's
you
where
know
women find their virtuous femininity, is their conviction to just doing what's right. So
yeah.
so so making the mistake of having sex with a man that you don't love, the right thing to do is to raise that child, which is a result of the union, rather than use it as a birth control and go kill your fucking child.
Hmm. Yeah.
Right? So do what's right,
There's
even in the
so
face.
much in
There's
that.
so much in that.
You know,
So
yeah, because
so
we talked
she's
about last time a little bit of like women calling out the greatness in men, right? Like
yeah. They
the
pull out the greatness because men need to be uh guided to, and usually it's the woman who's going to say that's wrong, you shouldn't do that,
yep.
right? I
Yeah.
know for
We're
myself, and it's a big huge source of consternation in my own marriage because my wife's always going, that's mean, that's jerk mentality, you need to
yeah.
slow your roll.
Yeah.
And not to disparage myself either. I have to do the same for her, so that's where that dynamic comes in. But but our wrong, a man's wrong usually ends in catastrophe, where a woman's wrong, like a catastrophe on a larger scale. So like,
Yeah.
so when I'm wrong, if I go into my house and decide to slap around my kids, that's a catastrophe on a large scale. If a woman's wrong, it's more of a personal scale, I would say, because we lash
There's a
out
there's a reason that most of the prisons are filled with men,
with men,
right?
because we lash
We
out. We are the
we
violent
have
of the, yeah.
we have more of them. I would say, and I don't want to diss on women or anything, but I would say that we have more of the monster in us. And I'm not
Yes.
saying that's a diss on women, but we just men have more of the monster in us that must be tamed.
So
right?
imagine if we were the ones who carried the babies. We'd kill them right when they got out.
So most likely, and there are some mammals that do that.
Well,
So
then there are mammals
yeah,
that do that.
d-
But my point
yeah,
is that the maybe God made women nurturing, more natural
yeah.
disposition to nurturing, so that, or maybe not God, maybe you could even, if you don't believe in God,
If
it could be evolution.
evolution,
the
yeah,
only
yeah,
the only reason that women don't kill their babies when they come out of the womb is because of the nurturing nature of them, which is why which is why abortion is so antithetic. Is that the right word? Antith and The opposite
anyway,
of
yeah,
what the abortion is, the opposite of what should be happening to a woman when she has a baby. It Because
right,
they are more nurturing. Why are nurses mostly women? There are a lot of nurse men who and it's not to disparage them. It's actually a
yeah,
good thing, because a lot of the time there's people who are sick who can't be
yeah,
helped up. Then you need a guy with a upper body strength, a nurse. But there's a reason that most women are nurses and
or
teachers, is because
nurturers,
they're nurturers. They
yeah, yeah,
by either an evolutionary nature or a God put this into them nature. And that's
this
why at the first of this story, all the heroes are
are
women,
women, yeah,
and only one of them
and
gets named, but they're all women. I find that
I was
awesome.
just thinking on this. It's kind of like wondering, asking the question. So I would say that we're in some really rough times with
Yeah.
like with just where things are all at and stuff like that. And I keep thinking that we need to do things to help men be better, right? Which is a good thing. Like I think we
Yeah. Yeah.
should continue to pursue that endeavor to help men to
Mm-hmm.
be better. But if you think about it, right here, what you were just saying, all the heroes are women. There might be a call out there for women to raise that bar, to help doing what needs to be done to
I'm
save the nation,
Yeah.
right?
Well, and I'm of the mind of we can all do better.
Yeah,
And my daughter, like, I have only daughters, and my daughters have a hard time with this because they want always to be told how good they are already. And I struggle with this myself, because I I want to tell them that I'm proud of them and stuff like that, but there's still room for improvement. And I don't
right.
want to squelch any desire to become better. So it's this like tipping of the scales, right? To try
Yeah,
to So on one hand, I'm like, yeah, you're amazing, and I think you're amazing, but the whole world isn't going to think you're amazing. So you need to do better so that you can become amazing, right?
yeah,
You need to
yeah.
you need to you need to read more and look on your phone less. You need
Mm-hmm.
to get up in the morning, get things done quickly, and not drag yourself out of bed. The things that make people do better. And like you said, maybe the fact that all of the people up until the story of actually Moses becoming the focal point of the story, they've all been women, and they're all
Yeah,
amazing women. The
and
midwives were
this
probably going to be killed if Pharaoh probably threatened to kill them if they didn't do what he
yeah,
said, right? I would imagine. They
yeah,
don't say that in the text, but I would imagine.
it's
So,
possible.
but instead they chose not to, and it
Yeah,
doesn't say whether they're Hebrew or whether they're Egyptian. It just says they're midwives, right?
yeah,
So it doesn't
yeah.
matter. It doesn't
So
matter what race they are or what religion they are. The fact that they said no, it says in the text that God, what does it say? God gave them
because
God. They looked favorable in God's eyes, or
uh,
something like that.
right, yeah.
So so
So
so standing up to the tyranny. even as a woman, so it's not just men who stand, men fight the tyranny, but women still can have their, so men physically fight the tyranny, right?
Yeah.
Women still can fight the tyranny. They do it differently.
Yeah.
And we need to acknowledge that as a society, because we're not acknowledging it as a society. We talked about this last week, about the fact that in Hollywood, all
All
strong
the
female are like warriors. They're pulling
they're
out swords
they're
and
like men.
they're like
They're
men.
like men.
They
And we
seem,
talked about how
yeah,
it was nothing disparaging in Gladiator and Braveheart that the women in it never pulled out a sword, but they were strong and powerful in their own right. There's
yes,
there was
but
nothing disparaging
it's
about
not
them.
but it's not that they're picking up a sword.
Yeah.
That's not how women are fight the tyranny, right? The women, the midwives in this story, fight the tyranny by going, no, I am not going to kill this baby
Yeah.
as it comes out of this mother.
Mother. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, that's amazing to me.
Or
That's an amazing,
I will build the ark for the
for
masculine to be saved.
to be saved.
I don't know what that means. And women will have to ask themselves that question. What does it mean to build the ark for the masculine to be saved? I don't know.
That's an interesting thought too.
What does that mean in today's age? Does that mean that, and I would say that the ark in itself is an analogy of the home. So it says in when Noah's story
Yeah.
comes up,
Okay.
it says that
Yeah.
Noah was perfect in his generations. So basically, Noah had the perfect family.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's a sense there that's like Noah has the perfect family, and he builds the ark that saves humankind.
Yeah.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
here is a woman, and Moses, and Dennis Prager makes the mention, Moses is the savior of the Jewish people.
Yeah.
Like in so many ways, Moses is kind of idolized like Jesus Christ is idolized for Christians
for Christians.
in
Yeah.
in many ways, right? And
with Jewish people,
it,
he is the ultimate hero, right?
yes,
Because
and
he's not
and Jonathan
perfect
Pageau,
either.
yeah, he's not perfect, but Jonathan Pageau mentions this in the fact that um the Israelites and just God doesn't really work because God is always trying to consume the Israelites. Well, I'm sure they're going to get into it later, but there literally is a point where God's like, you know what, this Israelite stuff, I'm you know what, I think I'm just going to consume all of them with fire, and I'll start off anew with you, Moses. And Moses is like, whoa, God, no, wait a minute, God,
Well, he does
don't
it.
do that.
God does this a lot. He did it with with Sodom and Gomorrah, didn't
Sodom
he?
and Gomorrah, where he sends
Where
Abraham to go find 10 families, and they mention that in this.
where
It
Lot,
might be a little later.
isn't it
Lot.
Lot that says,
So,
oh well,
no,
hold on, let's not be too
I,
hasty, let's not kill everybody.
was it Lot or was it Abraham that basically said, I mean, the same time frame, Lot or Abraham basically said,
They were
God,
brothers, weren't they?
don't I nephew, I think Lot
Oh,
was
okay.
his nephew.
Well, not Lot was his nephew.
Don't destroy Sodom and Gomorrah if I can find 100 families that are good. And then
Yeah,
it kind of
and he keeps going,
he's
but he's bargaining with
negotiating
him.
with
He's
God. He's
negotiating with
bargaining.
God. You
This
don't
is
ever see that
Israel.
again, right? You're
The
like,
name of Israel. The name of
the
Israel
struggle.
is the struggle with God. The wrestling with God. Right. So they're making a hey God, wait a minute. Let me bargain with you. Can I find 100
Well,
families? Wait,
and
I
then
can't find 100 families. Can I find 50? Can I find 10? And he's like, if I can't find 10, guess what? And God's like, guess what? Yeah. Anyway, so if you can find some families, bring them out because I'm going to destroy them. So
yeah. Huh.
Yeah.
Well, and
So
Moses does the same thing later on in the story, right? Where he's
yeah,
like pleading with God. Let's not.
He intercedes for the Israelites in their behalf. So, and in a sense, Jesus Christ does the same thing.
Yeah.
There's a justice that has to happen. There's the law that people are inferior and they need to be punished. But then Christ intercedes in a sense and says, take my blood and let my blood fulfill the law, which is
of the sin of
the sin.
Yeah. Huh.
So yeah, it's fun. We did not get very far.
We didn't get very far. I think we gotta stick the landing on this in some way because we didn't get very far. So
those really were three things that I wanted to hit on the most. Was the fact of, Pharaoh not remembering, not having a gratitude towards
previous nations,
a people that saved him.
Yeah.
And then
previous generations.
The women are the Pharaoh tries to get the women to destroy the masculine in the people,
but they're also
and the women are the saviors.
They're the saviors of the story.
Saviors of the story. And then the third thing that I wanted to hit on was the ark. The fact that that it was the woman that made the ark to save the masculine, which ends up being the savior
of humanity. So in essence, people. if for the feminist watcher that watches this that's hating on us, maybe in essence it is the divine feminine and not the masculine that saves humanity.
Maybe
she just probably doesn't get all the credit for it like Moses did. But I mean,
just because it's not as cool to pick
it's
up
not
the
as
sword,
cool to pick up the sword and go,
or the
fight,
staff,
or the
in
staff,
Moses'
the
case,
staff,
the
in
staff,
Moses' case,
right?
So,
right? But all the women were saved. All the heroes of the Exodus story were saved by women.
Yeah.
Oh
man, that's a lot. That's a lot.
That's a lot.
Process, right?
Until next time.
Okay, brother. I think that wraps
Have a great
this
day.
episode up. All right.
Yeah.